And it's working. For those of you that didn't get to hear the end of Gwen singing the No Doubt song there, you could have heard me singing it up here. That's probably for the best that you did not. We'll get started in just a second. A couple of announcements. First of all, I'd like to thank RKG for the sponsorship of our keynote room last night. And they are also our sponsor of the keynote this morning. So thank you very much to them. As a reminder, you can get all your daily announcements at twitter.com/SMX. You can follow us there. It's very handy. You get lots and lots of stuff coming your way. Or at smxtoday.com. If you're tweeting, the hashtag is forever and always just SMX. Hashtag SMX. And you can add in, Keynote if you want to on this, but it's the only session going on, so SMX is probably fine. When you're in the individual sessions, we also have session hashtags. It makes it easy for people to figure out what's going on in a particular room. But like I said, it's the only thing going on here. And with that, we will get started. Myself oriented here. So it is a pleasure to have Richard Alfonsi. He is the Vice President of Global Online Sales for Twitter here today for our keynote conversation. And obviously, out of respect for Richard and Twitter, we'd really like you not to do any tweeting of our talk. So, no, you can tweet away, obviously.
Please do feel free to tweet.
Yes, please tweet. Everybody tweet right now. And Richard, I thought we'd dive right in. Are there any forward-looking statements you wanted to make about the Twitter IPO, enticements, reasons people should be buying it right now? And you don't have to worry about any of the rules because the government's closed. So you should certainly feel free to just, sell it however you like.
It is convenient the government shut down. That makes our quiet period simpler. No, as you probably are aware, I really can't talk about any of those kind of things, but I appreciate you asking.
Now, seriously, I thought we'd get into some of the questions here. But I thought it'd be useful to get a sense of the audience here. I'll throw out a couple questions to them, and if you want to do the same. How many of you out there are using Twitter for your companies? So that seems to be everybody.
That's great.
Got one person out there. I'm still on MySpace. it's coming back. And how many of you have up to 50,000 followers? Maybe I started out too large. Okay. How many of you have up to 25,000? Up to 5? Let me go farther up in the numbers. How many of you have up to 100,000 followers? Okay, how do you have no followers? Okay. And how many of you out there are using any of the Twitter advertising options that are offered? So if you have, and did you have a sense you want to?
Well, it looks like I guess, does everyone use Twitter personally? So you started with the question of using Twitter for your business. How many folks use Twitter themselves? That's nearly everyone's hands. But it does look like very few folks are using the Twitter ad platform, so we can give you a little bit of sense on how that works and where it goes.
Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to start off with is we started out with these promoted accounts and promoted tweets, and then we gained refinements like the ability to target by interest or geography, and then there's been seemingly this dizzying array of new things that have come along. So can you kind of give us an update on what is going on with Twitter ads and what is the landscape like that's out there?
Yeah, sure. I guess even before you jump into the ads platform, I guess it's probably good to level set on how we think about Twitter as a consumer experience. And we really think about it as a communications medium that's live, it's public, and it's conversational. And these are all elements that the ads platform takes advantage of too. From a live perspective, it's very much real time because it's constrained media, 140 characters. Content is created very, very quickly. And it's created for mobile devices primarily. 60% of our users really access the service via mobile phone. In other countries, it's even higher than that. From the public perspective, all tweets are visible by everyone. It is fundamentally public. It's also highly distributed. People can see tweets wherever they flow. They can be retweeted. They can be pulled into news stories, et cetera. And it's conversational. There's an opportunity for two-way communication, regardless of how famous or how obscure you are, an opportunity for businesses to jump into that conversation as well and converse with their customers. So with that as a backdrop, you think about the ads platform. We really do believe that a good organic presence on Twitter is the right starting point and the right foundation. And we think about the ads platform as a way for businesses to amplify that really strong organic platform. So a couple of things that are fundamental principles about how we think about the ad system. One, put users first, right? The user experience is the most important thing to us. So content is important, and we think about these ads as content. Second, the ads really should be native to that experience. So native ads is something that we've kind of espoused for a long time. It served us well with respect to how consumers engage with these ads. And third, we talk about Twitter as really a bridge, not an island, in thinking about how we can help to reinforce and make more effective other ad campaigns that customers may have, that our clients may have, whether they're on TV or other online sources, and think about offline transactions as well. So with that, as kind of a backdrop, get back to your question, how do we think about this ads platform? It has been, an amazing ride. I've been with the company for about a year and a half, and Danny, as you mentioned, the first ad showed up on Twitter about 3 years ago, and it started out with some tweets that showed up against Twitter searches, and then we experimented with something called promoted trends, and since then, really in the last year and a half, we put the pedal to the floor in terms of really expanding all the aspects of what these ads can do in terms of how you target them, in terms of what the creative can do, what the ad copy and the sort of the associated media can do, and how you measure performance. Let me first start with kind of what the three main ad products are, where they show, and then we can kind of jump into other details if you're interested in that. There are three main products. The main, what I call the bread and butter ad unit, is called a promoted tweet, and that is the same as any other tweet, except it's labeled as promoted by the client. So if it's coming from the Gap or McDonald's or Rock Creek, Outfitters, it would be clearly marked from the consumer's perspective. This is a promoted tweet. It shows up in the user's timeline, and that's important because the timeline is where most of the action is on Twitter, especially on the mobile device. And that product is really useful for driving broad engagement, driving awareness, but also driving traffic and driving conversions. The second product is one of the earlier products that you had mentioned, promoted accounts. This is a way to get more followers. And this usually shows up, if you're thinking about the web interface, there's a who to follow module on the left side of the page. Usually the first slot of that is also clearly marked as a promoted recommendation from Twitter on accounts you might want to follow. These are businesses who, behind the scenes, are saying, I want more followers, and that is kind of the currency, right? So it's priced on a cost per follow basis. The third ad product is called a promoted trend. So in the lower left-hand part of the web interface, you've got what's trending right now, what's hot, and oftentimes the first slot is a promoted slot, and that will again be clearly marked who was promoted by, and that is kind of like a homepage takeover, right? That's actually priced on a cost per day basis, and this is meant to really drive broad awareness, maybe for a product release or some kind of other big thing. Those first two, promoted tweets and promoted accounts, are auction-based. So behind the scenes, the clients are bidding on how much they're willing to pay for the promoted tweets. The currency is how much you're willing to pay for an engagement, which is kind of like a click, but it can be a click, it can be a retweet, it can be a favorite, it can be a mention, all of a reply, it can be all of the Twitter verbs. And that's when money changes hands, right, if there is an engagement on that tweet. But importantly, there's a quality score element to this as well, in that you've got how much people are willing to pay, but it's how good the ad is. And that's effectively our prediction of how likely someone is to engage with that ad, kind of like the predicted click-through rate in other ad systems. So it's important that these ads they basically reward advertisers for being good, not being loud. So it's important that user quality, the user element I mentioned, is kind of first and foremost.
Now, who's making use of these? Is it just something that big companies are doing and big brands, or do you have small businesses that are making use of it?
It's really across the spectrum. I think the earliest adopters, well, actually some small businesses were the earliest adopters, but we probably had earliest traction with some big name brand advertisers, Fortune 500 class advertisers, and we still are extremely strong there. But it is, across the spectrum from the smallest small business, some local businesses, a lot of, savvy online marketers who are, certainly in the small business category, using the platform via self-service, paying with a credit card, and a lot of folks in between. A lot of these mid-sized businesses, mid-market folks, we're having tons of traction with them. So we do have advertisers of all shapes and sizes across all vertical industries are getting a lot of value.
Now, one of the things that you opened up this year was the ability for people to retarget. So somebody has visited a website, then they go over to Twitter, the advertiser can tell that that person on Twitter has been to their site before and hit them with a very specific message. What's the status of that? Has that rolled out to everybody?
You know, that's actually in a very experimental stage. Let me take a half step back in terms of how you can target ads on the Twitter platform. And you know, the idea is, especially if you think about those tweets, the promoted tweets, the tweets in timeline. You know, when I joined the company, there really was very little targeting available. You could kind of basically target an ad to your followers or lookalikes to your current followers. Now there are like over a dozen ways you can reach the right person with the right ad at the right time, capturing these kind of moments of relevance that we talk about. And that's important, right? So you can think about targeting ads based on keywords, what people are tweeting, what they're interacting with, based on interests. And Twitter has a bunch of information about what you tweet, who you follow, what you engage with. That's an interest graph that's quite powerful. You can target even based on sort of what TV ads you've recently seen. But you can also do things like location, gender, device type, all of these dimensions. Literally a dozen different dimensions you can use to target ads to really get to the right user. The places we're actually starting to expand are things like retargeting, and another area we're excited about that we're calling tailored audiences, which is if a client gives us what's called a hashed or a scrambled list of email addresses, that's another way you can target users. These are two very early days offerings. They're in kind of early stage beta, even alpha. So they're not fully rolled out yet, but they are important new targeting dimensions that we're excited about.
And to go back to the device targeting, so if I'm Samsung, I could target just iPhone users?
You can.
Or vice versa?
You can target based on the operating system, based on tablet versus smartphone, desktop versus mobile, et cetera. And that's going to get more refined too, being able to target specific operating system versions, other kinds of device types as well.
And I thought one of the interesting things you have are these lead generation cards, which is this ability where it's not just retweeting it, but you can actually have an offer. You can have things that are showing up in Twitter to interact with. But I haven't seen many of those myself in my feed. So are they being used much by people?
Yeah, it's early days. We launched this feature at scale about a month and a half ago, right? So it is still pretty early. But this gets into, if we talked a lot about targeting, right, how you target the ads, the second big element of any ad system is what's the creative? What can the ad say? What can it do? So a promoted tweet is typically 140 characters, but it's oftentimes becoming more and more 140 character caption on some richer media payload. And this is one great payload, right? Being able to have what's called a Twitter card. A card is like an expanded tweet. You can see an image, you can see a video, you can see a snippet of a story. In this case, you can see a specific ad unit that's meant to capture email addresses. So we call it a lead generation card. The idea is if an advertiser wants to capture email addresses to be able to follow up with these users later, that in one click, once the user expands that tweet, they can choose to share the email address. We're very explicit that they're doing that, and they kind of have that messaging in the ad unit. And in one click from a mobile device or a desktop PC, they can actually share that email address with the advertiser. So we have hundreds of advertisers using this now. They're getting great results. I mean, they kind of measure performance on a cost per lead basis. What you kind of think about for each lead you're capturing. And it's, again, spectrum of advertisers, from big folks like Mercedes-Benz and The Gap, Whole Foods, Wall Street Journal, to small guys like Rock Creek, this kind of outdoor retailer online based in Tennessee. And they have a great story we posted online that in a week's time, they captured 1,700 leads. And they had almost a 5% engagement rate on this ad unit. So 5% of the people that actually saw this ad clicked on it, and many of them actually shared the email address. So they were thrilled with the sort of results they got from a cost per lead basis, because it was very, very targeted, and they got the right people they wanted on this email list.
Now, how do the advertisers go through in terms of calculating their ROI? Do you have people who are like, I actually am going to track this back to sales, or do you have people who are like, I'm just looking for brand lift, or you have people in there who just, I don't even know, I just wanted a bunch of followers, and how do they even know if those followers are paying off for them?
Yeah, and that's been evolving, and you're hitting on the third area. If we talked about targeting, we talked about creative. The third big element of any ad system is measurement. How do you keep score? How do you know if you're getting value for what you're paying? And this is something that Twitter takes very seriously. It's something I personally, am very wired into. I'm kind of an analytical geek myself, and I've always told my clients, look, if we can't hit your marketing goals, I don't want your money. I really would rather have you keep it or go somewhere where you can hit these goals. So as far as what goals people are after, a lot of folks are after kind of upper funnel brand awareness type goals, and there the goal might be engagements and engagement rate and the volume of conversations that's happening on the platform. And we do great with that, and that's stuff you can measure on the platform. But increasingly, and I think for the future, we're really focused on being able to track and measure lower funnel kind of direct response type performance. Lead generation cards are a good example of that because you have a specific action that the user has taken in sharing their email address, and tracking that to a cost per lead that makes sense for your business makes a ton of sense. The other things we're doing is there are a series of things that kind of tie together offline conversion activity. We call it sort of offline sales impact. And it's a research-based approach that uses partnership with Datalogix. Datalogix has a bunch of information about what people buy in stores offline. So we've done a lot of work with consumer packaged goods players. And the results are pretty striking in terms of sort of the impact that engagement on tweets have online to offline sales. A couple fun facts here. Just being exposed to a promoted tweet has an 8 percentage point lift in purchase activity. Engaging with the promoted tweet has a 12% lift. If you're a follower and you're exposed to a promoted tweet, it's a 29% lift, right? So these tweets are actually changing offline conversion behavior that are happening in stores. The other thing we're going to be building out is really being able to track online conversions and other types of conversions, and putting that in the right context in the optimization scheme, in the ads interface, so that people can really track performance and pull the right levers for targeting, for bidding, for other kinds of creative optimization to make sure they're getting value. So we're all about kind of measuring and being able to deliver return on investment up and down the marketing funnel, from kind of the upper funnel brand awareness stuff to lower funnel direct response.
Now, you've also had just a flurry of announcements related to television as well. You've got the ability to target people who, if I understand it, you can tell that I'm watching TV live or what program I'm watching, and that you've got the Amplify system, if I understand it, that's going to cause people to then start tweeting me live video, which I haven't seen, but I guess that's coming, and I'm going to be able to get NFL, which I don't really want to watch, but I guess if
Maybe
it's
you
in
can
my
take
Twitter,
it in 30
but I know everybody else wants to watch
snippets,
it.
It'll be great.
Yeah, okay. So what's going on with TV?
There's a huge connection between Twitter and TV that we're really excited about. If you think about it, basically, Twitter makes TV better, and TV makes Twitter better in a lot of ways. First example, first kind of note is basically, if you think about Twitter's becoming the second screen for TV. I mean, 95% of the public conversation happening about TV is happening on Twitter, online. So the experience a lot of folks have, they're watching the Super Bowl, or watching any sporting event, or watching the Grammys, or watching the Emmys, or watching Breaking Bad. You've got your smartphone in your lap, and almost exclusively you've got Twitter open, and you're spinning through your timeline. It's a better experience. I mean, just personally, as I think about watching a sporting event or watching a show that I know a lot of people are having a shared experience around, the peanut gallery that's shipping in on Twitter is fascinating, and it makes the experience that much richer. So in a lot of ways, it's really energizing live TV. It's driving tune-in, right? So there's both a correlation and a causation study from Nielsen that shows that Twitter activity about TV content is actually driving folks to actually watch and driving ratings. So with that as a backdrop, that you think about Twitter as a second screen to TV, there are a couple of big opportunities. I mean, one you mentioned was, how do you target ads? So I mentioned you can target based on keywords, based on interest. The newest thing we launched probably about 3 months ago, we've been beta testing it earlier, is TV ads targeting. So we've got a lot of knowledge about who's watching what on TV based on what they tweet, and therefore who's seeing what ads that are associated with those TV programs. And we can kind of pull all that together and basically have an advertiser give us their creative for their TV ad, and we'll go find it. Right? This is actually a pretty hard problem. An advertiser couldn't even tell you where their ads have shown until they get the report, the couple days afterward. Right, to being able to do some digital fingerprinting and have the knowledge of the program schedules and what ads are showing where, and associating that with users that we know have watched those TV shows and those ads, it's pretty cool. Right?
And knowing that they've watched it because they've tweeted
because
at that
they've
particular
tweeted about
time.
it, they've done it in the past, because they're engaging with tweets about it. We have a pretty strong, I won't say it's 100% positive lock, but it's a very, very, very strong signal about who's seen this or who hasn't. So the experience would be, hey, I'm watching a TV show, maybe it's SEC football, and an advertiser I was visiting yesterday, New York Life, has a TV ad that shows, it's got keep good going is their tagline, and you'd see an associated promoted tweet in your timeline very soon after that. So it's a complimentary message that that advertiser who tried to reach you through TV is now able to give you in your second screen experience. So it's a pretty interesting way, and again, to amplify or build this bridge between what the TV advertiser is doing, what they're doing online. And that's something that's fairly distinctive. A lot of folks are all about kind of displacing TV advertising with video. We think there's a way to really tie this together and make more potent and more powerful your TV ad spending and your online spending by tying them together.
Now, what do you do about me when I'm DVRing something, and so 3 days later I start complaining about something in a show or talking about it or whatever, and I'm always out of sync?
Yeah, well, can't help you there. I do think the important notion of the platform is it's live, so our most powerful user model is happening during the show and the couple hours after the show, and you can look at the tweet activity and see these charts about how it does trail off. Now, there is, I think the shifted experience, whether it's on Netflix or on DVR, is certainly important. Now, it's a huge kind of consumption pattern, and I do that binge watching type thing myself. I think it is interesting. You do forego that shared experience in a lot of ways, so I think there's probably a little less we'd have to offer in terms of ad targeting if you have that shifted experience. But we do think there's a lot of room to play in this live world.
And do you see Twitter as kind of saving live TV in some ways? I mean, it seemed like it was going away, and then, I thought the Emmys were horrible, and yet I was tuned in just to see what everybody was saying about it. It was like giving me, the second screen experience was really real, because it was almost like, yeah, that's terrible, but I want to see what people are mocking about it, so I'll watch it.
Look, it's hard to say that Twitter's the savior for live TV. There's some elements, like sporting events, always better live, and that has been, I think, the mainstay of live TV for a long time. I think Twitter does make those live events that have always been important to TV better, right? The experience is better. I do think, some of these events like, the VMA Awards, the Emmys, where you have, Miley Cyrus doing incredibly silly things, and that explodes on Twitter. It drives people, to have part of that shared experience, and it drives people to tune in, right, and find this. So I think there certainly are elements where we are helping to really, drive the live TV experience in a more positive way. The other thing you mentioned, was this Twitter Amplify program I wanted to touch on. That's a little less about immediate and live, but it is another way I think that it can help TV broadcasters, content owners really get more mileage out of their content. So we announced a couple big deals last week, one with the NFL, one with CBS. We have 30 partners in this Amplify program. The basic program is this. So it gives really a media company like the NFL the ability to tweet out a video clip of compelling content. And it would come, in this case, from the NFL handle. You can promote that to get broader distribution across people who don't yet follow NFL. And there's an opportunity to sponsor that entire package. So in the NFL example, you could say, hey, I'm going to actually tweet out live instant replays for Thursday night games. In fact, it happened last Thursday for the first time. It'll happen tomorrow night. So when I was watching the San Francisco 49ers game last week, and wide receiver named Anquan Bolden made a nice play, basically took off from the 5-yard line and made the score. And a couple seconds later, you see this tweet coming in my stream from NFL. It's got sort of the clip of that exact replay. It's even better if you don't watch the game, right? Because now you're actually back in your bedroom. Oh gosh, just turn the game on, right? And that's what the NFL is seeing. You're seeing tune in. It's also the case that there's a sponsor. In this case, Verizon Wireless is the sponsor of that. There's like a 5-second, 6-second pre-roll in advance of that 30-second clip. That's a pretty interesting sort of package that it doesn't get in the way, but it is a nice opportunity for Verizon to be associated with pretty compelling content. So that's the idea. And we've got deals with CBS, with ESPN, with Turner Sports for NCAA basketball. Just a whole range of sports and non-sports related content we're pretty excited about. So it's another way that we're helping to kind of build this bridge to the TV world, and we think it's got some legs to it.
And again, are these things really only for the big brands and the media companies? Are there ways for smaller businesses or mid-sized businesses or B2B businesses to tap into all this activity that's going on around TV with their own messages?
I think there is. I mean, the first ad product we talked about, TV ad targeting, it basically assumes you're basically advertising on TV, and that is the targeting mechanism we're using. So if you're not advertising on TV, that makes a little less sense. But you can imagine how you take some of that similar data and think about, hey, wouldn't it be great to be able to target based on who's watching various shows, right? So maybe I'm not advertising on TV, but I would make it easy to be able to, hey, I want to hit the people that are watching, you know, Monday Night Football, or that are watching Breaking Bad, and being able to make that really simple to target. So that's a way for, I think, smaller businesses who aren't doing TV advertising now to tap into this. So I think there is a range of opportunities in the TV world as well.
Now, you know, Facebook has been doing a ton of things over this past year to seemingly jump onto the TV bandwagon as well. Now we got hashtags, now we're going to work with television things as well. Are they late to the game? Will they be able to do it? Are you worried that, oh no, people have been using Twitter in this sort of way, but now they'll be using Facebook in that sort of way as well?
Well, look, the first thing I'll say is we worry about sort of our business and not so much about what Facebook or others are doing. What I will say, going back to kind of some of the early things I said, what we think is distinctive about our platform is it's live, it's public, it's conversational, and the live and public parts are what make this TV experience so much richer. So the fact that the interaction model is real time on Twitter, that makes this connection with TV really sing. If you've got, we call it really, in fact, I had dinner with a guy named Deb Roy. We bought a company called Bluefin Labs. Deb was their founder and chairman, amazing guy. And he calls Twitter the social soundtrack for TV. So it's a live soundtrack that's happening in the background. I think other services are more like a social DVR, right? So you're basically time shifted, you're going to check that out a couple days later. It's different, right? It's a different kind of experience. Not that it's not valuable, but it's just different. And the public is also distinctive, right? The fact that all the content on Twitter is available and visible by everyone is a different experience than what might be more of a, we'll call it a walled garden, but a different kind of experience where there has to be a mutual connection, mutual follow, mutual kind of friending. So I do think there are some fundamental ways the Twitter platform works that lend itself extremely well to TV, and we like our position.
Now shifting gears, you purchased MoPub. That's all done now, if I recall.
Well, we announced the intent to acquire them. We signed what's called the definitive agreement. We're still in the closing process, so we're still a couple weeks off of that.
And that helps publishers carry mobile ads and mobile ads to be distributed to mobile publishers and anybody with mobile content all over the place, not just on Twitter. So how does that fit in with Twitter, which has pretty much been ads on the Twitter properties themselves? Is this going to be taking Twitter ads all over the place?
Yeah. Look, we're super excited about this deal. I think we announced it about 3 weeks ago. To kind of give you a little more context on what MoPub is, they are really the biggest mobile ad exchange, right? So they bring together buyers and sellers of mobile ads. The inventory that they're kind of serving on is ads in mobile applications, right? So you can think about mostly display ads. It could be what's called interstitial ads in these mobile apps, but mobile is the central component. So there are two fundamental kind of shifts that we see in the ad world that aligns well with this deal. One, we see a shift towards mobile, and this is not a secret. It's been around for a long time. Twitter was born mobile. It's 140 characters in a tweet because it was made to work on the SMS system back in 2006. So we've been kind of thinking about mobile, not just first, but all in for a long time. The same is true in the ads world. So MoPub has that that kind of DNA as well. So they purpose-built this ad exchange for mobile. The second thing is programmatic buying. You hear about terms like RTB, real-time bidding. You see a lot of this in the desktop world. My old employer, Google, is very big in this world. But in mobile, really, it's still kind of anyone's game. So we think that programmatic buying is something we want to be into as Twitter, something that MoPub was quite strong in. So having these two themes sort of align between Twitter and MoPub is pretty exciting. So a couple theses on the deal, why we did. I mean, one, we like their business, right? It's growing very nicely. We want to invest in their standalone business. We want to think about that. We do want to what's called RTB enable, real-time bidding enable our own inventory to allow other folks to kind of use programmatic buying, which is fundamentally auction-based but has specific protocols around it to give people the ability to tap into our inventory in the way they want to buy. And then third, I think there is this notion of really improving native ads for mobile apps beyond Twitter. right? So being able to think about, that ad experience for users in a smart way and help these pubs and publishers to monetize that inventory they have using kind of the right tools. So we do think this does provide us with a business model that goes beyond just the borders of Twitter, right? Because it does now fundamentally tap into the growth in the mobile app and ad ecosystem in a way we like a lot.
Now, one of the things, going back to TV, is that when you have one of these events happening and people kind of gather around it, that seemed to be one of these things I think you described as a now moment.
Yep.
Is all there. But can you talk more about that sort of concept and other kinds of things? You can see people all talking about, for example, the shutdown right now that's happening,
right,
and I guess that's sort of a now moment as well. And so
let's hope it's just a short-term now moment,
short-term
not a
now
long-term now moment. By the way, I heard on the news last night that on CNN they said that the approval rating for Brussels sprouts, colonoscopies, and head lice is higher than the U.S. Congress right now. Which seemed appropriate. Anyway, these now moments. So I think, there are a lot of these only on Twitter moments that happen. A couple of examples that come to mind. Any Star Trek fans in the audience? Yeah. So, you too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I thought so. So there's a Canadian astronaut named Chris Hadfield, right? He goes by the handle Commander Hadfield. He lived on the International Space Station for 6 months. And right around the New Year, he was tweeting everyone a kind of New Year's greeting. He's been sending out via tweet, from the space station, amazing photos. So he kind of built a bit of following. So William Shatner gets wind of this, and he tweets at Commander Hatfield, "Hey, are you tweeting from space?" And in kind of deadpan Mr. Sulu sort of talk, Commander Hatfield, real astronaut in space, says, "Yes, Captain, standard orbit, detecting signs of life on the surface." So you have now a real astronaut tweeting with, Captain Kirk, and then sort of the whole Star Trek cast jumps into this Twitter conversation that's kind of happening. So you have Mr. Sulu, George Takei jumps in, and he tweets some stuff. You've got Leonard Nimoy, Mr. Spock, he jumps in, and then to top it all off, Buzz Aldrin, second man, walk on the moon, he jumps in too and says, "Hey, if Neil and I could have done it, we'd have tweeted from the moon. I want to do it from Mars." Right? So you have these kinds of, only on Twitter moments. You have all these people kind of connecting. That are pretty interesting. It really has the whole live public conversational stuff in a nutshell. You've got other moments like the Super Bowl is a great one. And Super Bowl is a big cultural moment anyway. But on Twitter, it was quite interesting when in this most recent Super Bowl the lights went out. Right, so you guys all know in the New Orleans Superdome, power failure for 20 minutes. The lights were gone and people weren't sure what to do. And Twitter lit up like a Christmas tree. So again, businesses paying attention. Oreo is the seminal example everyone's heard about. It's kind of trite now, but Oreo, had sort of a war room in place, and they put out this one kind of graphic that, I had this campaign about you can always dunk your cookies. The graphic said, "Hey, lights out, no problem. You can still dunk in the dark." This won all kinds of awards at the Cannes Advertising Festival, et cetera. But it was the talk of the advertising community the next day. So something like 17,000 retweets that connected with, it really resonated with consumers. And it wasn't the paid Super Bowl ad they were talking about the next day, which Oreo had a pretty clever one of those too. It was this tweet that was for free, right? That was an organic tweet. I mean, there are all kinds of other examples of these kind of now moments. There's some good ones around Breaking Bad. I don't know if folks are, big on Breaking Bad. I personally watched my first Breaking Bad episode.
Just no spoilers, okay?
No spoilers. Look, I've watched season 1, episode 1. I actually watched it on Sunday night just to kind of align with the rest of the world. But I got 53 episodes to go myself. But you see, the sort of these moments happening around this cultural event. Warren Buffett is a great guy to follow on Twitter. He tweeted out this Photoshop picture of himself that looked like Walter White, right, the main character. He had, photoshopped goatee and fedora, and here is the Oracle of Omaha, the greatest investor probably ever lived, says even the Oracle doesn't know what's going to happen tonight. This is before the Breaking Bad finale. You got people like one of the other main actors in the show, Aaron Paul, who plays the younger character Jesse. He's got, he had all kinds of Twitter activity leading up to this finale, and he had this scavenger hunt working on Twitter for tickets to the season finale party in LA. And you may have heard about this, but basically he hid 20 tickets around LA, and he was tweeting out clues. So one of the clues was simply behind the Funyuns, at the Walgreens, at Santa Monica and Highland. right? That's where the ticket was hidden. And he said, by the way, Funyuns are awesome, right? So you have these kind of connections between famous people and people, who are just like you or me. You've got, other kinds of folks who are there. And this creates, in many ways, a conversation that marketers can tap into. Now, maybe not the, Commander Hatfield, William Shatner example, but, certainly like the Super Bowl, like things around Breaking Bad, things around the Emmys, advertisers find amazing ways to tap into this. And, more broadly, these now moments, they happen every day. So when people tweet out, hey, I'm going to go camping this weekend, right? Isn't that a great opportunity for REI or my friends at Rock Creek to go and kind of hit them with a message? People tweet, hey, I'm buying a coffee maker, right? So a great opportunity for Mr. Coffee to get in front of them. Hey, I'm hungry, right? Good opportunity for McDonald's or Olive Garden or someone to get in front of them with a targeted, promoted tweet. So as we look at marketing, it's always been around, winning moments. And it's less about target markets. It's about target moments, right? Finding people in the right mindset at the right time with the right message. And those conversations, they're happening on Twitter. And hopefully with our ad tools, which are still developing, we're giving advertisers and marketers the opportunity to tap into that, make that conversation a canvas they can really make their own.
I mean, they're the ads things, but what are the ways to identify some of the conversations that are happening or some of the trends that are out there? And what kind of tools or general advice on how do you become part of that conversation without being an annoying part of it?
It's a great question. So the first part of it is how do you identify trends that are happening? And I guess what's important is to know sort of the pulse and cadence of what's important for your industry and your business, right? So it's not just about the big cultural events like the Super Bowl or Breaking Bad or the Emmys. It's about the fact that people tweet about grilling, on Thursday and Friday than on Saturday. They tweet about, going camping with a certain cadence. They tweet about running. They tweet about, I'm hungry with a certain cadence. Knowing what it looks like, and we do give you some tools to do that internally. There's some third-party tools that tap into the fire hose of data that we have. A company called Topsy is really quite good at that. We use it internally as well. So you can kind of understand these trends and be able to understand the volume of conversations happening around the keywords that matter to you, right? Because you can target ads based on keywords. We have some tools that let you say, hey, what is the volume of keywords, of the conversations that include these keywords that I want to tap into? So that's important. And then how do you tap into it, right? So I think, first, you want to listen, right? You want to listen to what people are talking about around these topics that are important to you, around these conversations. And as you engage with your customer base, with your clients, you want to be authentic, right? You don't want to just insert yourself and say, hey, I got something to sell you. Join the conversation and really be authentic to your brand and to kind of your business, but don't be obtrusive. And that, I think, is the whole beauty of native ads, and that they're not obtrusive in the user experience. And as a result, they got tremendously high engagement rates. So if you're smart about the content and you're smart about the targeting, we're seeing engagement rates between 1% and 3%, which is unheard of, before these kind of ads rolled around. I mean, I've been in the display ad industry for a long time. What we would see is like 0.2% click-through rate. So we're talking about 5, 10, 15 times the engagement on these ads if you harness the conversation in a smart way.
We obviously have a huge chunk of search marketers that are used to the idea of keyword targeted ads. How do they approach this when they come into Twitter? Because you say you can target to keywords, but are we dealing with the same sort of thing where I buy my keyword and it's only showing up for the people when they've actually done a Twitter search? And are people doing many Twitter searches? Or are you also then targeting me because I've used the word in some way?
Yeah. So, I mean, the primary way to think about keyword targeting on Twitter is targeting people in the Twitter home timeline based on what they've tweeted, the keywords in their tweets, and the keywords in tweets they've interacted with, they've engaged with. It is the case, too, that you can target based on search terms. Like there is an important search function in Twitter. But, honestly, a lot of the action is, in that home timeline rather than in the search function. So you can do both. You should do both. But I think that, thinking through what the right keywords are, and it probably does require a little bit of massage. You can certainly start with the keyword lists that you're using on Google, on Bing, on Yahoo to get sort of a good running start on this. But really understanding how people tweet, how people engage. They don't speak in quite the way you kind of think about the strings in Google when you do kind of a search query. So it does require a little bit of tweaking in thinking, and it requires a little bit of, a little more of paring down of these lists, right? So I think it's kind of laying in a million keywords is not really the best answer for targeting on Twitter right now. But we do think targeting based on keywords is really a potent way to get at that now moment. Like right now, there is a conversation happening, with this person. They've got this as that person's attention. That is a moment of relevance you want to capture, right? So it is very analogous to kind of the search signal that you get with respect to intent.
So if I've tweeted about, if I'm targeting camping for some reason with some kind of ads, I know it's a big camping weekend, so I decide to use that as one of my keywords that I'm targeting. I'm both going to catch people who might go to Twitter and do a search for camping, but I'm also going to be catching people who just tweeted about camping. Later on in their timeline, they may get my promoted tweet coming up.
That's right. So the seminal example would be, hey, heading camping this weekend, super excited, right? So we parse that tweet and think, all right, what are all the keywords in that tweet? Camping this weekend. That might be a really important signal for you to get in front of them to say, hey, I've got a great deal on tents or a great deal on pocket knives, whatever it might be. The same could be true. I use the example about, hey, I'm hungry for Italian food. Great opportunity for Olive Garden to get in front of those folks, or other restaurants to get in front of those folks to kind of capture that opportunity. Now, the same will be true if you actually go and search for the term camping in the search interface on Twitter. You'll see those ads. And in fact, we encourage people to have joint campaigns that kind of go with what we call keyword targeting in timeline and keyword targeting in search, and make sure you're kind of owning those keywords because they should be always on. That's kind of a minimum bid that you should have. You should have those keywords that are important to you and layer on top of it. And
what is happening with Twitter search? I mean, you can talk a bit about how people make use of it. I mean, are people going there and doing searches quite a bit? How do those searches kind of differ from the traditional searches you might see them doing on a Twitter, not on Twitter, but on a Google or a Bing? Those kinds of searches often seem to be transactional. I'm looking for information that people tend to, instead on Twitter, I do a hashtag search or something like that.
Look, I think that people do search on Twitter a lot, and I think it is important. I guess the fundamental mindset on Twitter is about attention in real time, right? Attention that's happening right now, and thinking about searching on a hashtag. The intent there is to, hey, I want to actually know what's happening in terms of conversation around this topic that I might have seen as trending, or that I might just think is happening in an important way right now. I think the mindset around traditional search is probably a bit more kind of long-term memory rather than kind of immediate attention. And I think there is looking for information that's deeper, perhaps. So I think the live part of the kind of live public conversation is probably what is pervading most of the current Twitter searches that are happening.
By the way, a quick one here. This always comes up. What is the situation with verification? People always want to get verified. In the past, the solution seemed to be, take out an expensive advertising account. Yeah. But now you can get advertising accounts for very little money. Does that work for it, or what's the?
Verification is a strange beast. And I swear, when I first joined Twitter, most of the people tweeting at me were saying, hey, can I get verified? I was like, I can't verify you. That's not my job. So I didn't really understand the importance of this blue check mark that everyone has. I should point out that people like Dick Costello and Jack Dorsey aren't verified, right? So there's people, Twitter employees aren't
You should really verify them, I think.
What's that? Maybe we should. Anyway. The main point of verification is to actually verify people who may be impersonated, right? So if you are a public figure, you want to disambiguate. If it's the case that, hey, am I really talking to Danny Sullivan here? Am I really watching, following what Danny Sullivan is saying, or am I following some imposter? The same could be true for businesses, where you want to make sure there is that disambiguation and you're really clear what you're dealing with. So look, the sort of mechanics and the process I won't get into here. Frankly, I don't have all the details on it, but that is the fundamental point of where this works. So it is important for some advertisers. It may not be relevant for all advertisers, because not all advertisers are prone to be kind of the target of an imposter. But if there is that kind of doubt, then we want to step in and make sure we verify it for our users.
Hey, it worked for me. I got into a baseball game because of it.
Is that right?
Yeah, I had I didn't have my wallet, and I had to pick up tickets. And they said, I need a name and a picture ID to give you these tickets. So I brought up my Twitter profile and said, well, that's my name.
That's awesome.
my
Blue
picture.
check mark. I'm in.
And I said, that blue check mark even tells you Twitter. And they're like going, yeah, right.
That's great.
So I don't recommend that for airline flights. But,
no.
But maybe there's a business model there, I'm just saying. I'm going to go to open Q&A as a heads up that we'll need to get the mic going. But let me give you one more question before we get to that. we have had embeds, the ability for people to just embed the tweets into their own pages and have them display. And then we had publishers who embed those tweets, kind of get flipped back where they now show up on Twitter in association with the original tweet. And it all seems like part of this sense of Twitter is almost jumping off its own platform. Is the whole web really Twitter's canvas? And
well, in a lot of ways it is. And that metaphor I used about Twitter being sort of a bridge, not an island, we don't want to necessarily keep people on Twitter, right? We want to connect them with the content that they find relevant to the experiences and the attention that they want to have. So the element of having tweets be broadly distributed, one aspect of them being public, is making them really, really simple to embed on other websites, right? To embed in news stories. So it has the added benefit that if you think about, back in sort of 2009 when that U.S. Airways flight landed in the Hudson River, that was one of these seminal moments for Twitter, because the person who took that picture was on a ferry boat watching a rescue happen, and it was that picture that was tweeted out that became the fundamental picture that all news agencies picked up. It was on websites everywhere, and part of it was because we made it very easy to embed that content in these news stories. So we think it's good for users. We think it's good for Twitter to kind of broadly distribute this content across the web. And we think it kind of will drive overall kind of user growth and user behavior in a positive way.
by the way, kind of related to that, do you see more that Twitter can or will be doing to help people who create that content and share it actually get paid for it? Because, so that picture gets picked up and it gets used by everybody. And now, thanks to the embeds, you technically could take the picture, put it on the site, and say, well, I'm not delivering the picture. Twitter's delivering the picture. And so, if it was a traditional media and it was a newspaper that taking that picture and everybody takes it, there's demands of copyright infringement and DMCA, and it should all come down. But the flip back doesn't seem to happen that way at all.
Yeah. I can't say we've got great plans there. I think it's a great idea, and I do think we believe deeply in sort of empowering great content on the web. That's why we want to share the content. We want to make tweets portable. We want them to kind of flow wherever they go, and making sure that the people who own that content get paid and can have kind of a business around that is important. By the way, that's one of the things around if you just take it in a slightly different direction. MoPub does that for mobile app developers right now, providing monetization to kind of create great apps in the ecosystem because they can make money off of them. We think that's a pretty big opportunity.
Okay. So we have some time for a couple questions, and then I'll come back with some closing questions for you as well. Sure. And also, if you had more questions for the audience, I'll give you a chance for that. We can't see you because there's giant lights blinding us. It's the surface of the sun. But if you catch Karen's attention, she'll bring you the mic.
Hi. For people, I'm not sure if this is exactly in your bailiwick, but for people
I can't verify you.
Damn it. Okay, never mind. For people who use Twitter a lot for example, live tweeting events or tweet chats or even just live tweeting, the Super Bowl or whatever,
Sure.
There are a lot of issues with being rate limited, and you get locked out and you can't tweet for a while. And it seems like what you're saying is more that you want more of that. And I wonder if that's something that Twitter is looking at and trying to figure out how to do it in cases where it's legitimate and not just spammers who are just latching on to the promoted tweets or trending tweets.
The short answer is I actually don't know. It's interesting because another one of the speakers in the backstage room mentioned the same issue to me. So clearly it is something that's on people's minds. I don't have kind of insight into kind of what exactly we're doing there, but if you give me your card afterward, I'm happy to look into it a little bit and see. I mean, it is definitely the case. We want to empower great content on the platform. We also want to protect users, right? So I think there is, huge opportunity for abuse. That's why there are rate limits in place. I mean, that is an important signal for someone who is spamming the network. But for people who are doing this in the right way, having kind of the right chats, we want to get that feedback back to our product people and make sure that they understand the issues.
You might also go to, I can't remember the account now, maybe just @safety or it might be @trust. But, do the shout out to them when you get unlimited, but I mean, you should be able to say back to them, I'm at a conference,
right?
I'm live.
Yeah,
I found that very effective, and they usually, seem to go after fixing it right away.
I think that's a good point.
Morning. I think we kind of conceived a general consensus that Twitter is really great for, you're in the moment, you're now, and companies that can provide to that sort of need, whether it be someone with a retail location where you can say, hey, you can head right here to get this product now. But do you have any kind of thoughts or insights for companies that traditionally work on kind of a more, you mentioned programmatic earlier, that work on kind of an event-based basis, or something where what they would do is typically promote events that are happening at a specific place and time?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Yeah, I don't think it is just about sort of capturing demand in that moment around a specific event. And I can give some other examples, like business-to-business examples that are a more traditional kind of conversion path. But to your question about events, one of our big clients is GoPro. So GoPro has have these wearable cameras, very small, amazing content, because they've got people with these cameras on surfboards, people lashed on the back of eagles, all kinds of things. They are a sponsor of, like the X Games for ESPN and similar things. They used our platform, they use our platform organically incredibly well. 700,000 followers, largely because they are very authentic in their kind of presence, and they've got the great content I mentioned, the video content. But they use promoted trends to be able to kind of amplify that around an event they were sponsoring. So a promoted trend is, again, that product that is like a homepage takeover. It's a big awareness generator. Everyone in the United States would see it on that day when they log into Twitter. And for them, it generated like 7x the amount of conversation around their handle that day. It generated like 6x the number of follows that they would normally see. So I think there are a lot of good examples of people tapping into event-based strategies and sponsorship that could make a lot of sense. It doesn't require you to buy the promoted trend for that day. It can be just using kind of smart targeting, keyword targeting, and other kinds of targeting to get at people who are talking about the event. If you want to target SMX, you want to target search engine marketing, you want to target social marketing, all these things would be great to target around this particular event. So I think people see a lot of success in the B2B realm, in the business consumer realm, around targeting around events. I mean, events could be like South by Southwest, CES. These are other big events that many of our advertisers really kind of tapped into that conversation in a pretty powerful way. To answer your question? Okay, thanks. Let's take one back there.
You mentioned that Twitter is a now platform, and that's especially true in financial markets, where the stock price of Apple goes up on a tweet from Carl Icahn seemingly once every week. But that can also have a negative effect. A couple months ago, there was a tweet from what people thought was the AP saying that the White House was was shot at, and President Obama was injured. That set markets down drastically. What's Twitter doing to kind of limit that negative instant reaction, kind of parse that from happening again?
Yeah. I mean, the AP example that was mentioned was the AP's account was hacked, right? So someone actually hacked into their Twitter account. They tweeted that the White House was under attack, and I think markets moved like 5 percentage points for a very brief point of time until it was clear that this was a hoax. So look, we've made a lot of investments since then to improve security, thinking about two-factor authentication, where you have to know something and have something to be able to log in. That helps a lot. And you'll see us continue to improve security overall to make sure that we, like the verification idea, that what you're seeing on Twitter is coming from the people that you expect it to come from, because that's really important to the overall user experience.
I have time for one or two more.
Hello, good morning.
Hi.
I'd like to know about the Twitter campaign of Coca-Cola in Portugal, whether you feel that that's something that can be replicated in the United States or another of the larger nations.
I'm going to have to admit, I'm not sure what that campaign is, but if you talk to me afterward, I'm happy to get more details and
I
figure it
can
out.
tell you what the
Sure.
campaign is. They have been running live tweets from Portuguese individuals on the Coca-Cola commercials, saying that that having dinner together is a lost art, and so people are tweeting on television that I'm going to have dinner tonight. Why don't you come over?
Look, I think that kind of engagement, it is happening now, and it's not just specific to Portugal. It's not specific to Coke, right? So being able to again, draw in your target customers, being able to have them be part of this conversation, create the content you want to put out there, is something a lot of folks are doing. And the connection they've made, I guess you're saying they made a connection to TV ads. That's not new either, right? I mean, I think you have, the Gap just recently in the U.S., had a lot of stuff they did where they, for the first time in 4 years, they kind of put TV ads out there, and they tested those ads on Twitter and used a lot of the feedback they got to kind of sharpen those up. So whether it's actually using specific tweets and content in your advertising, or whether it's just kind of using that attention and that input to be able to sharpen it up, it makes a lot of sense. So, it is an interesting one that we should probably keep an eye on for sure.
And we'll do one more question. We have it. If we have one more question. Going once. All right, I'll go back. Did you have any other questions you want to throw out to the audience?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Chris, I have one.
Oh,
Okay. Where are you? Okay.
oh, there.
There's one back there.
Hi. Do you find that social media as a whole, but definitely Twitter specific, it's kind of like a drag a horse to water concept? Like, you really shouldn't really be pushing anything specifically, but it's more so for like positive brand perception? I only ask because I have clients that say, you're not selling things, but my argument is, people hate you less than they did last week. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a glass half empty view. Look, I think that you do need to have a mindset that cultivates a bit more than like a one-shot deal to convert right away. I'll talk about, I mentioned some good business-to-business examples, but one of our most successful clients on the platform, a small company you probably haven't heard of, but they're called New Relic, and they target the developer community. Their product is application monitoring software. So you can tell what's happening in the guts of your web app or your mobile app. So it's a pretty techie thing. And their business model is you want to get people to come to their site, to sign up for a free trial, and then after 3 days, they want to deploy that in a paid way and start buying the software. So, what they've done very successfully is have sort of a cultivation scheme that works through each of those 3 touch points. And they have really compelling content. So they'll put out infographics around sort of, women in tech or girls who code. They'll put out infographics around other important sort of developer topics that may not be kind of having that call to action to buy my software now, but bring you into the site, engage you on Twitter, and then bring you into the New Relic site, and then move through that cultivation process. They also use offers very, very effectively. So simple as T-shirts, right? They have these really cool kind of nerd life T-shirts that is kind of a zeitgeist in the developer community. Everyone wants one of these things. I wear mine with pride. It's great. And they have other kind of contest giveaways that kind of draw people in too. But I think it's a good way of inserting yourself into a developer conversation for your target audience with interesting content, interesting offers that bring people along. And I will tell you, from a conversion perspective, they're killing it. It's amazing. If you think about the numbers over the last quarter, their number of signups have gone up like 10x over just 1 quarter period of time. And it's Twitter is among their highest performing channels for driving signups and deploys. So if you think carefully about content, about offers, about authenticity on the platform, it really can convert from a transactional perspective. And that's what gets me excited, because I think that's actually driving real value for our clients. Thank you.
Thank you. I was wondering, just to close some things out, any overlooked features you think that marketers might not be looking at? Everybody has analytics now, right? But they might not realize that.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of analytics in the ads platform for sure that you can see. So you can we talked about fancy things like doing offline impacts, sales impact, et cetera. But just looking at the platform and knowing the volume of impressions, of engagements, being able to kind of drive that for each campaign time, each targeting type, et cetera. And then I think you can also see. Even if you're not on the ads platform, you can see other types of analytics with respect to your follower dynamics and other, who's following you, those kind of things. So there's a rich vein of information to tap into about your own Twitter presence that can be very instructive.
I was kind of curious how you use Twitter personally.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I basically use it to kind of connect with news a lot. So you can expect, sort of tech news and sort of ad industry news are big things for me. So, it's great to follow not just the sort of news sources, but journalists, right? So I think, and editors, following you is great. It's fun to kind of see the stuff you tweet about, but I think, you think about like, following the New York Times is interesting, but following like Nick Bilton, who's one of the sort of reporters, is interesting because he'll have a tweak and sort of a perspective on the story he wrote that'll come out on Twitter, and conversations will kind of happen. Following not just all things digital, but Kara Swisher or Peter Kafka, these are interesting things where you see kind of their perspective on these issues that make it that much more interesting because it brings you closer to them. You might not know them, you might not have met all these folks, but you may just now see a perspective you didn't see by just reading what they've written. I think I'm a big sports fan, right? So I went to Duke for undergrad, so I'm a huge college basketball fan. So follow Dick Vitale and follow ESPN and those kind of things. I'm loving this NFL. You give it a try. I know you might watch NFL, but the kind of Twitter Amplify real-time highlights that are coming from that NFL deal, they're pretty darn cool, right? So being able to see these snippets kind of in your timeline, it brings you in a pretty cool way. So yeah, I think that plus other kind of business and technology leaders are fun. People like Rupert Murdoch is a trip to kind of follow. He's unfiltered and raw. Richard Branson, the head of Virgin, he's fun to follow. There are a bunch of folks like that. So yeah, I probably follow a good 600 or so people. And yeah, you never see everything that everyone tweets, but you get a pretty good zeitgeist of what's happening.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
out
you,
today.
Dan.
I
It's been
really
great.
appreciate it.
Really enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.